The payer catalog is a list of third-party payers such as insurance company, attorney, employer, or any other payer responsible for payment other than the patient. Payers are assigned to the patient on the policy window and are billed for charges entered in the transaction window. If you will be assigning a payer to a patient's policy window, you will need to add them to the payer catalog first. Click on Tools, Catalogs, Payers. Here we see the Save, New, Search, and IntelliSense buttons. IntelliSense is primarily for fee schedules and overrides and will be discussed in another video. Click New to add a new payer. Click Save to save a new payer or changes to an existing payer. The Search button is used to open a search window to look up an existing payer. To search for a payer, click the Search button to launch the Search Payers window. Type the text to look up in the Find field. By default, the search looks in any column, or choose a lookup column from the drop-down list. All will show all of the payers in the catalog to scroll through. Additionally, click on one of the letters to see all of the payers that begin with that respective letter. Once you've found the payer, double-click on it to open it for editing, or click the X in the upper right window to close the lookup window. Next are the navigation buttons. Use the left and right arrows to cycle back and forth through the different payers. The left arrow with the vertical line moves to the very first record, and the right arrow with the vertical line moves to the last record. Now we will go over the fields. Click the New button to add a new payer, or use the lookup to open and edit an existing payer. You will notice there are two tabs, the General tab and the CMS 1500 Form Preferences tab. We will start with the General tab. The Catalog ID is a unique identifier you create for the payer. It can be up to 10 text characters. Once a catalog ID is saved, it cannot be deleted or changed. However, you may change all of the other fields. The next field is the status. The status can be either active or inactive. An inactive status cannot be used. Next is the payer field. Enter the payer's name here. This can be an insurance company, attorney, or any other party responsible for payment other than the patient. Next is the payer ID field. The payer ID identifies the payer to the clearinghouse for electronic submission. If you will be submitting claims electronically, check with your clearinghouse to obtain the correct payer ID for that payer. EMR Datacenter currently supports two methods for submitting claims: CMS 1500 0212 on paper claim forms for mailing, and Disk Image 0212 for electronic submission. Choose one of the two form types as the default form type for this payer. Use the No Print option if you want to create claims but do not want to submit them. You may change the default in the payer file if needed. If you have a contact person, put their name in the contact field. Enter the phone, fax numbers in their respective fields, and enter the address, city, state, and zip in the appropriate fields. You may use the remarks box to type any notes pertaining to that payer. Check the Enable Patient Tracers checkbox to have a notation on resubmitted claims stating when the claim was originally printed. If you are only completing the General tab, click Save. The CMS 1500 Form Preferences tab is primarily used for billing options and exceptions. The first two drop-down lists pertain to the signatures. The patient drop-down is no longer used. EMR Datacenter automatically puts Signature on File in box 12 for the patient on the CMS 1500 claim form. The provider drop-down is for box 31. There are three options here: digitized, name, and original. Name and original will both leave box 31 blank for a manual signature or stamp. Digitized will put the provider's signature in box 31. If the provider has supplied a signature file, we can scan and size to fit for box 31. The insured boxes 4 and 7 default to duplicate patient information, and typically that is the right choice. The DX relation box has 4 choices. 1, 2, 3, 4 will place A, B, C, and D in box 24E regardless of the number of diagnoses. 1, 2, ... will put A, B, C, D based on the actual number of diagnoses. For example, ABC if there are only 3 codes. This is the recommended option. The next option will only use the A, or the first diagnosis, and the custom field allows you to enter your own relationship like A, C, G, J. Box 19 is rarely used on the 0212 claim form. If you need specific information in box 19, contact technical support for assistance. The next box will disable the printing in the address area. This is rarely used but can be checked if needed. If you are required to enter a provider's state license number in box 31, check the box. You will want to make sure you have the state license for that provider in the provider catalog. Next is the tax ID type for box 25 on the claim form. You may choose from provider default, Social Security, or employer identification. Provider default will place the tax ID set as default for the provider in the provider catalog. If you check Social Security or employer identification, EMR Datacenter will place the appropriate number from the provider catalog in box 25. The grid below the tax ID will list all active providers and is used to override the default numbers EMR Datacenter puts in the various fields. For example, some payers want the same NPI number in both box 32 and 33A. By default, EMR Datacenter puts the facility NPI in box 32A and the provider NPI in box 33A. If the payer wants the facility NPI in both boxes, scroll to the right to find the preference 33A column and enter the appropriate number in the column across from the provider. As mentioned earlier, there will be a separate video on IntelliSense. However, there is one drop-down on the IntelliSense window that should be discussed here. Click the IntelliSense button to launch the IntelliSense window. Halfway down, you will see the claim type drop-down. The default is group health, and that is fine for most cases. However, if the patient is on Medicare or Medicaid, click the drop-down and choose the appropriate claim type. This checks the appropriate checkbox for box 1 on the claim form. When you are finished entering a new payer or editing an existing payer, click the Save button and close the window. This completes the video on the payer catalog. Be sure to check out our other videos and please subscribe to our YouTube channel and turn on notifications to be alerted when new videos post. Thank you for watching.